Looking cold.
Yeah, I'm in Baltimore. It's cold. I'm actually just about to walk into my first property. I have a Section 8 inspection, a re-inspection around 1.
Yep.
So I just got, in front of the property. It's actually colder out in Baltimore than New York right now. So
it is chilly. It is chilly. Congratulations on getting to your second re-inspection. Welcome to the lots of re-inspection Section 8 club.
Listen, I'll tell you.
How can I help, brother?
There's so much, but re-inspection, I don't even know how I feel, but so I did all the little things they asked me to do, so I'm hoping that's it. We'll see. So that's that. So that's happening today, even though the re-inspection was supposed to happen early this morning. Yep. I get to the property 8 this morning, then they changed the time this morning while I'm there to 1, or between 1 and 4. So the lady calls me, the inspector says she'll be here at 1, but we'll see. I'm actually closing on a property. It was supposed to close today, but they had to extend the closing on the seller side. Yep. Or Holland's Market, so closing on that. But I was, I wanted to ask you some questions in regards to when you refinance, right? Because I'm actually finishing up a process with the first refinance, but the second refinance, like how much would you recommend taking out of the deal when you refinance? Because I know there's a certain amount, depending on, the window of equity you have. You say, well, I'm going to pull out X amount and maybe leave a little in for, rental income. Like, what would be your advice on that?
It's a great question, Chris. I mean, it depends on, I always like to keep cash flow in the property. Some investors like to leverage as much as they possibly can. I am not one of those investors that always maximize leverage because that will take away cash flow. I don't have a hard, fast, set rule. If you don't maximize, let's do an example real quick. Let's say your property's worth $200,000. Right? Often you can pull out 75 LTV, which is going to be 150,000. I'm doing this on the fly, so bear with me. My numbers might be slightly off, but I think they're right. So if you pull out max, you can pull 150, have a loan of 150,000. And depending on what my rents are, if you pull out at that highest rate, you're going to have the highest interest rate. So if you pull out 75 LTV, which is 75% of the ARV, whatever the property they appraises for, 200,000, you're going to get the highest interest rate. And if you pull out less, you'll get a slightly less interest rate. So what I'm trying to say there is you have this like lever that you can pull to say, hey, I want a little bit less interest rate. I don't think I'm going to refi. But if you do that and you have multiple properties, you end up having to refi more often instead of maybe just maximizing it out. So it really depends on what your ARV is and what your rents are. And if there's plenty of cash flow, then I maximize and I'll go full 75% LTV. If there's not, then I might lower it down. Let's say I only have $390 in cash flow with a loan. I'll pull it back. I mean, I just did, and I'm giving you advice for if I was talking to me. If you're me, I just did a refinance and I did it at 60% loan to value. And a lot of bigger investors might say, hey, Dave, you're an idiot. But it's just your comfort level. I now that property has more cash flow and the interest rate went down a little bit because I lowered that LTV. So I'm a lower risk borrower to the lender, if that makes sense. There's no hard and fast rule. I just say what I'd say is make sure you don't take out all your cash flow because then you're going to be stressed. Then you're going to have to say, hey, I got to take money from my job or money from somewhere else if some repair happens. And why I like 400 cash flow or higher is because if anything happens, usually I'm covering it I'm just not making money that month. So if like the toilet has to be replaced, okay, I didn't make that $400 that month. Or if the washer dies and I have to have the used appliance place bring a new washer. I just didn't make money that month, but I'm not pulling out of my account. So it's if that makes sense. I've always found that has been beneficial. And the key is that you want to stay in the game as long as possible. And so if you're less stressed, you're going to be in the game for a lot longer. If you're pulling money out of like, hey, I'm working my 9 to 5 and I'm having to come out of my paycheck to cover repairs, you're going to be like, this kind of sucks. I don't want to be here. And where you're going to make the massive wealth is if you hold the property for 10 years and go, okay, now on that property, I made 150 or 200,000. And so that would be my advice for the refinance, if that makes sense. Just make sure you have cash flow. I mean, go up to his leverage as much as possible with you being comfortable with the cash flow. And I'd say just keep a buffer so you're not pulling out of your own bank account.
No, that makes a lot of sense. That was something I was thinking about too. Is just that I guess for this first one here, I know that I spent so much money, so I guess I'm looking at it like at least I get something back, because I went through hell with the contract, and then in order to pass inspection, the first regular inspection, forget Section 8, I had to pay to get that done. Then it just cost me more money than I thought. So I was thinking I'll just get my money back, and I might make like 100 something. Like the numbers I would do, I'll probably make $100 off the property cash flow. But then I'm thinking like maybe my second one I won't take out as much, with the new one when I refi that one, But at least I have some cash in the bank where I could move around a little more. So if another deal comes up, then I can say, all right, well, because both of these two deals, I haven't made any money yet. So these both came out of my pockets. I'm, trying to, re-up a little bit, if that makes sense. So
no, it does. When I started investing, I just got off a phone call with another gentleman. When I started investing, I only purchased one property every 2 years. Or I guess I was purchasing like a property maybe every year and a half. And then it kind of snowballed. And then there was a year that I purchased 9 properties or something, or 9 units. And when I look back, it's not about volume. It can be a volume game. It's a very stressful game to play. I'm releasing a video on Friday about how much money I made off of a property I sold back this September. And it was a lot of money. I made $265,000 on one property. And that's super low stress. I mean, it was a good area. Rents appreciated. I made cash flow every month. And my point there is not to brag about it. It's just to say you don't need a ton of properties to create the wealth. Don't think more properties is a higher chance of success. Don't think of that. I want you to think of like good quality properties. I just want to buy good quality properties that are in cash flow and hold them for the best metric in real estate, which is time. I held that property for 11 years. So time helped me out a lot there with appreciation and rent growth. But don't think of like, I need to get to the next one. I need to like get through. You're going to go through your learning lessons. I would be super nervous of holding a property with 100 cash flow. So know that none of my properties have $100 in cash flow, because I'd feel like when anything goes wrong, I'm coming out of my own pocket, and we're in real estate to make money. Then you're betting on the property appreciating. I don't like to bet on the property appreciating. It usually happens, but I like to say, hey, I'm going to make cash flow. And so if the property doesn't appreciate at all, I know I still made money. I don't want to do the reverse bet where I say, hey, the property has to appreciate for me to make money. Does that make sense?
Right.
And so I kind of want you to reverse your thinking and go back and go, okay, how do I buy better? How do I find a better deal that's going to cash flow more? And it doesn't need to be crazy cash flow. If you're in a good area, you're not going to get really good cash flow, but it needs to be better than $100. You're going to burn yourself out, and you're going to get super stressed. And then you're going to be making bad decisions because you don't have any cash flow, whether you're going to be renovating things poorly, and that it's going to be what's going to end up happening is going to be a snowball. You're not going to have money to do the right renovation or the renovation that you want. So then it's going to snowball to a tenant not wanting to rent your property. And so now your property is taking longer to lease. And so it starts to get this like bad, I'm not trying to be super negative, but you just, you understand? I mean, that's one of the reasons why I like a little bit of cash flow. I mean, if you have generated the wealth, you don't need the cash flow, but you're a newer investor. And so you need that cash flow. You're not playing in the, hey, I'm just purchasing this $500,000 property for cash, and I'm just going to make 6% every month instead of doing it in a money market and hopefully it appreciates. That's not the game you're playing right now. And realize that your investment game, it's going to change over time. You're going to change the way you invest a little bit. It's not going to be the same game all the time. And so mine's changed over time. But I think what's best for you is to really focus on that cash flow piece. And that's just doing a ton of analyzing to know, hey, this is where it's going to be. That's the area that I'm going to get a little bit of cash flow, or just getting a really sweet deal and really big value add. I would also say, I know you chatted about you being a student. I'd also say like 100% take me up on the offer for the course for $99 in the Facebook group and go through the course. It's going to be 100% worth your time. 100% worth your money. It's all my learning lessons. It's basically like you picking yourself up, and it's like you were already investing for 5 years. And you're like, okay, now I have all the learning lessons. And the biggest things in there, a lot of like red flags with contractors. You want to know those. And some of them might not set in your brain when you hear me say them, but then when you're talking to a contractor, you go, oh, shoot, Dave said like, hey, I got to be really weary about this. Because even great investors, even like really great ones that I'm friends with, have lost 30K with a contractor. And it's just like, that's what you want to avoid. And if a small course is going to help you avoid that, it's going to be worth your time. But it's also going to help you determine what the characteristics of like really good contractors are. The whole thing that's going to speed you up in becoming a better investor is mastering that contractor game, mastering the rehab game. If you have great contractors, and you should spend a lot of your time and energy, which most people don't, they get comfortable. We do it the same thing we do in relationships. We get comfortable with a friend, even though that friend might not be good for us. And so we still hang out with them instead of going, you know what? I kind of need to upgrade this friend a little bit. He's a bad influence, because we're comfortable. And so I think that early on in my career, I would have changed that piece. I would have focused a lot more. And now anytime anybody says, hey, I got this awesome electrician, it's like somebody can be across the room and say, oh, what are you guys talking about over here?
Right.
And it's not necessarily that I need that piece, but I know how important it is to focus on it and then add a stable of good contractors, because you never know when somebody retires, when somebody gets too busy with another large investor and they're like, hey man, I can't get to your project. I have contractors that I work with and I'm really good friends with that I'll introduce them to another investor. And then all of a sudden it's going to take 3 weeks to get to my project. And,
Right.
and that's going to slow down your project. So realizing if you have this stable of contractors, your projects are going to go faster. And what happens when your project goes faster? You get rents quicker and you're not getting that expense that you having to pay. And so that's super important as well. So mastering the rehab makes you more money, not just in the rehab element, but also in getting your cash flow started quicker. So a lot of people don't correlate that, but it's super important. And so a lot of times we just try to find the cheapest contractor and the lowest price. That's not what we need to be optimizing. We need to be optimizing for high quality contractors. They're going to point crap out that are like, hey man, you should probably change this out. I can do it. Not trying to screw us, but they're basically our advocates. They're basically saying, hey man, this is probably a bad thing. And I'm sorry. It sounds like you went through a little bit of the grind with the contract. That's part of the game. I mean, we've all been there, but I definitely say that will help you out. It's 3 hours of content. So it's a bit of content, but it'll be worth your time. I promise you.
Okay. Yes, I'll definitely look into that because, you know, that was an experience with the contract. Like, so far it's been okay, the direction I'm going in. But like I said, I'm still, I'm new to it, so I'm still, learning, and I was definitely
We're all
getting
learning.
to that. Yeah, because and it's just
You're gonna be learning forever. You're gonna be learning forever. I promise you that.
Yeah.
I learn stuff
Yeah.
weekly. I'm like, oh shoot, I didn't realize that's how that works.
That's true. That's true. All right.
I appreciate you, Chris. Don't hesitate to reach out, brother, if you need anything else.
Appreciate that, Dave. Thanks a lot, man.
Absolutely.
All right. Take care, man.
See ya.